Hi, this is Curt and welcome to another edition of Fire Law Roundup.
Let's go now. This one is a good learning lesson case. The next one I want to go over is going to be in over a West Virginia line of duty death. This is a really good learning case because it's basically a allegation. I'll get into the facts, but it's an allegation that you didn't follow the fire brigade standards. I mean, basically, the attorney looks like he was familiar with 1910-156, I think, and basically said you didn't. He doesn't cite it that way, but said, look, somebody was injured because you didn't follow the fire brigade standard. So let's go through
Well, I
that.
think also it looks almost also like NFPA 1500 also.
Yeah,
so,
which mirror each other, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, and you tell me, because I know you were following this. OSHA hasn't adopted that new fire brigade standard, have they?
No, they have not, but they're in hearings. They're getting closer.
Right.
It's still moving forward. Every 6 months I get an update and I follow it, but the as you call it, I think NFPA 1500 light. But the things here are straight out of 156, 1910-156.
Oh, I didn't realize
we'll go
that.
through it. Let me throw out the facts and then we'll so here the father, because he has a deceased son who's a firefighter, is the plaintiff, but this suit arises because the firefighter was an Air National Guard firefighter, which first raises some questions to me, right? What the federal stance is on line of duty deaths and injuries. And he died while fighting a structure fire off base. It was pursuant to a mutual aid agreement with a local fire department. The local fire department called them in, and it looks like there was a building collapse.
It was a barn fire.
Barn fire, which raises questions to me why anybody's in a barn, but in any event, right, no reason. Our fire comment is no reason to be in a barn, but again, we weren't there. We don't know. But anyway, so a beam collapsed. Assuming it's heavy timber construction, a beam collapsed, and the barn collapsed, and he was killed in the barn. But when you look at what they allege, again, these are allegations, not saying it's not true. I have not listened to the dispatch tapes. I haven't read any reports. We're just quoting. But basically, what they say is the incident commander breached his duties. And yeah, some of these are definitely from 156. Some are definitely out of 1500, like the safety officer. Any reference to a safety officer is more, I would say, is more from 1500. But here's what he said they did. And let me read through a lot of these, because if you don't do these at a scene, you could face the same allegations, right? So they said he failed to perform, or if he did perform, it was negligently performed, a situation evaluation for risk assessment, right? And he failed to appoint a safety officer to monitor conditions and operations. Failed to determine or negligently determined, if he did make a determination, that the building was a life safety risk, and that, he failed to assess survivability for firefighters, right? And we know, like at a fire, one of two things is going to kill you. You're going to run out of air, or the building's going to fall on you, or you get burnt, right? I mean, three things maybe, but building collapse is a big deal. So they're really focusing on you didn't do the things you were supposed to do. You didn't do a size up is the allegation. You didn't confirm the condition of the structure and the location of the fire. You didn't look allegations. You didn't evaluate whether the building was going to collapse or not, was structurally sound or not. And it keeps going on, right? The one that's interesting is, which confuses me, I could take a guess. He alleged failed to notify all the firefighters that the operations were to be defensive only. That raises a more interesting question to me than all of these, lack of accountability, and it goes on, right? But it very much, maybe it's both. Maybe he pulled out 1500 and 156. Accountabilities in 156, also an NFPA 1500. And I have no idea whether West Virginia is a NFPA state, an OSHA state, et cetera. But the radio communications, if they determined it was defensive, right? If there was a determination that it was defensive, I can't tell. And if he radioed that and people didn't hear it or didn't back out, I mean, again, I don't know the timings to any of this. It's just an allegation. But the reason I think this case is so significant to viewers is this is a list of what you should be doing on a scene. And if you read any NIOSH report, a lot of these things are in here. OSHA reports, these things, may find themselves in here. So these are the basics of command. If you haven't taken a command class, you should, but these are the basics of what you're doing as command. A lot of people see the chief as useless, right? Just kind of sending people into the battle and staying up on the hill, but that's not what it is. The chief really is performing safety and assessments. And so this also gets into what are the qualifications of your chief. Now, I'm not saying the lawsuit does, but you can't do these things. You can't do building size up if you don't have a solid foundational knowledge of building construction, right? If you haven't, taken various construction classes, combustible, non-combustible, etc. But we don't, again, that's all we know. These are allegations, but I really encourage people that if you read all the allegations and you haven't done these things, or you don't do these things at a fire, these are basic things that fire departments should be doing. So if they weren't done, at least somebody's got to ask why not. Right. And look, we're having a hard time finding fire chiefs who are qualified, who have all the knowledge, but it's just class and class time. Go take a building construction course. Go take it was Dodson and Mittendorf who started. I don't know if they're still doing it. Dave Dodson did How to Read Smoke, and now for the last couple of years he's had a course How to Read Buildings. They have a great, him and Chief Mittendorf have a great book. I'm not kidding when I say it sits on my nightstand. But building construction is key. You need to know how to read buildings. Buildings kill us.
Yeah, I think Frank Brannigan used to do a lot of that training, and I think Glenn Corbett, if I'm not mistaken, now has taken up where Frank left off, and he's now authoring. So that's another good book and another good source of information. So
reads like watching paint dry, right? Brannigan was probably the most.
Here's the thing. When I look at a case like this, even if the fire department did nothing wrong, okay, even if they were not responsible for the fatality, when you don't comply with those requirements, and when I look at those, I see NFPA more so than OSHA. But bottom line is, and having said that, OSHA is looking at adopting the same thing that is in NFPA. But when you don't comply with all of those things, then even if the fatality wasn't your fault, it's going to end up looking like you were somehow responsible because you have the failure to meet the standard and a fatality. And, the attorney is going to argue, 2 + 2 = 4. You have a fatality. You didn't comply with this, and this. And 2 + 2 = 4. And then, the defense is going to argue, wait a minute, there's no causation. You can't connect the violation and so on. But at that point, you're already in court. You're already, you already have those problems. And we've got a brother or sister firefighter in a casket. So,
and I'll tell you, my own department was sued over a death as well as others. Being in a department where that happens is it tears the department apart. Now, this is not their own department, it's mutual aid department, but still, to be the chief, because I've seen, I won't mention the names, but a friend of mine was accused of sending somebody in when they shouldn't have been in, and I watched what happens to that person having to live with these allegations. It destroyed him and has nearly, if not killed him. But it is, I would never want to be, in that position. I always pride, I never even had an injury while I was chief for my 4 years as chief, which is, fortunate, if not skilled, but I can't imagine what it's like to have a line of duty death where you're blamed, right? I mean, I know what it's like, but I can't imagine being the person who is blamed. So we certainly, our heart goes out to this. But on the other hand, let's prevent these types of allegations. These things, whether you're an NFPA state, whether you're an NFPA believer, these are the fundamentals, the basics that any expert witness is going to sit on the stand and say, listen, I don't care whether you're an NFPA state or not. I don't care if you don't believe in NFPA, but these are the basics of being command. And it's true, it is. I mean, so hopefully it's not, hopefully this is not what led to the death.